What's one book that influenced you probably the most?
There's 50. I'm so sorry.
I'll give a couple of them.
Yeah.
Or three.
I don't have the title off the tip of my tongue.
Or the author.
Brene Brown.
She's wonderful.
Not Braving the Wilderness. Daring Greatly is the one that I would come to mind. And I'm so sorry. I'm going to say Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People from that old literature, and Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Very important book around his experience. Do you know the story of Viktor Frankl?
No, I haven't.
Viktor Frankl was taken prisoner in the Nazi concentration camps in World War II. He was a psychologist when he went in there. When he went in there with his wife by his side, and then they were separating the women and the men, she was killed within a day. He he took his own wedding band off his finger and threw it in the dirt because he knew they would cut his finger off to get it. He lived under conditions where 1 in 28 people made it out alive in the concentration camp. People around him being beaten, starved, tortured, murdered. He made a wonderful discovery that led to a lifelong body of work that's leading to me tell a very sort of almost not even close to the magnitude of the story. He said that in between, he learned that in between stimulus and response, in between people around him being beaten, starved, tortured, murdered, and his response to that as a prisoner in a concentration camp, there's a gap. And in that gap is the power to choose your response. And if you can choose your response, you can choose your freedom. And he went on to create the Frankl Institute. That is a man's search for meaning. Like if I had to pick even the 3 that I mentioned, Man's Search for Meaning. Read that book. It'll talk about the ability to choose in a way that's just so profound.
Got it. Noted. Point noted. I'm making a note. What's your definition of a true win? Your definition of a true win?
The high quality of conversations that I've had in the last year.
Love it. Yeah, I could attest to those as well. What's one belief that guides your decisions, Scott? Probably confidence, or probably empathy, or could be different things.
Interesting.
You're making decisions day after day, and you're making big decisions, small decisions.
Yeah.
And some are
the guiding principle for me, it's empowering others. That is is what I just did it make that conversation better? Did it make them a little bit better? Did it move them forward? Did I use my ability to create an aha moment, a life-changing moment, either in 10 minutes or 10 hours or whatever that was? That's certainly a guiding principle, because I have that skill set to help people think differently and take action that makes a big impact.
Love it.
Hi, I'm Vijayan Swaminathan. I'm the founder and CEO of Zadwell. At Zadwell, we help our clients transform into the digital space. We help from the web technologies to blockchain to Internet of Things and a wide range of services. Over the years, I can see the impact of technology that can have on business of all sizes. But I've also seen a gap in the market, a lack of quality support and outstanding technology solutions that truly meet the needs of the client. And that's where we come in. And ever since 2018, we started Zadwell. We've been helping more clients to digitally transform their business. We want to provide that personalized and dedicated support and care for our clients. And through this process, we want to see our clients thrive through the digital transformation process. At Zadwell, we work with a wide range of clients, from small businesses to startups to large enterprises and public sector companies. We have the experience and expertise to help you with your goals and an ever-changing technology landscape. So if you're looking for a technology partner who truly cares about your success, here we are. It's been an incredible journey so far, and I'm so excited to see where we'll go next. Let's get to work.
Every business runs on systems, but most systems are not the problem. Misunderstanding is, teams interpret requirements differently, details get lost, assumptions creep in, and before long, projects slow down, costs rise, and complexity takes over. Adaptech Group helps organizations solve this at the source. Founded by Adam Dimitruk, they bring clarity to complex systems using a method called event modeling. Instead of starting with code, they start with the story of the business. What actually happens? In what order? and why it matters. Like a storyboard for software, event modeling creates a shared picture that everyone can understand. Business leaders, developers, stakeholders, all aligned before anything is built. That alignment changes everything. Fewer surprises, less rework, better planning, and faster delivery without chaos. But clarity isn't just for the beginning. With event sourcing, they make sure systems never forget every change, every decision, every action captured as a complete history over time. No lost data, no guessing what happened, no blind spots, just a full, reliable story of how the business actually works. This means better decisions, stronger trust in data, easier debugging, and systems that adapt as the business evolves. And in a world driven by AI, that clarity becomes even more powerful. Because when systems are broken into clear, understandable steps, AI performs better with fewer mistakes and less risk. Adaptech Group doesn't just help build software, they help organizations understand it, design it, and trust it. Because when confusion is removed, progress becomes predictable. Adaptech Group. Design it right. Build it once. Visit adaptechgroup.com and book an event modeling session today.
Hey everyone, welcome to Pathfinders podcast. Today we are talking to an amazing guest, Gordon Sheppard. Gordon, welcome to Pathfinders.
Great to be here. I mean, with all your good experience on this podcast and how long it's been running, I'm just really honored to be spending the time.
Yeah, Gordon, allow me to introduce you properly, please. What if your biggest wins wasn't luck, but a repeatable formula? What if every breakthrough, every new client, every revenue milestone, every moment your team exceeded expectations could be studied, broken down, and recreated on demand? Today's guest has spent more than 25 years helping leaders do exactly that. Gordon Sheppard is a CEO, executive coach, business advisor, and meeting facilitator who has helped countless leaders transform isolated wins into consistent, predictable success. He's the creator of the powerful concept known as the anatomy of a win, a proven 5-step framework that helps leaders understand not just what worked, but why it worked and how to make it happen again. With an MBA, Proscate Change Management certification, and a uniquely diverse background spanning organizational consulting, leadership development, marketing, communications, and even drama, Gordon brings both analytical precision and human insight to the art of leadership. He's also the host of Executive Wins podcast, where he uncovers the real stories behind business victories from leaders around the world, so others can learn, apply, and win more often. If you're a leader who wants more clarity, momentum, more meaningful wins, not just once, but over and over again, this conversation is for you. Gordon, welcome again. It's a pleasure to sit down with you today, my friend.
Thanks for putting that introduction together and sort of catching really the spirit, the distilling kind of the spirit of what I'm really working on today at the pinnacle of all of that 25, 35, many more years underneath my belt. So I really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. Gordon, walk us through. I mean, you've spent more than like 25, 35 years, decades of experience you've gathered. Where did it all start? How was the younger Gordon doing? What was the 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old Gordon doing? What was that journey like? Where did you grow up? Like, tell us a little bit more about where it all started.
Yeah, so if I've got the time, it's that thing, I'm born in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and from 0 to 10, I was there. Dad had tickets to the Montreal Forum where we watched the Montreal Canadiens in 1978 go in, and it's arguably one of the best hockey teams ever put together. So I'm a big hockey fan, and it was really fun to sort of roll down there. And it was really fun in those days in Montreal. I remember being a little kid, you got your arm up and Dad's holding your hand kind of going to these games. I would walk by. There's two things I loved to do when we were walking on St. Catherine Street there. One was there was a Lamborghini dealership. Like you could look in the window and there's like 3 Lamborghinis in there and you're like, oh, who's going in there? That was pretty cool. And then they had Mr. Mike's sub, which I loved getting like a sub going to the game. And then we watched the game and it had so much character. Those guys that could throw peanuts behind their back, 50 rows, and you didn't know they were coming, but it was all that kind of thing. It was just a great experience there. And so growing up in Montreal, that was my kind of younger days. And then funny enough, if you look at the political scenario, my dad left Montreal, sort of went to Toronto in sort of politically charged days, leading to that first separatist referendum that they had in 80 in Quebec. But that sort of moved to Toronto. And then, so I ended up going then to Toronto. There's a little stint in Sudbury, north of Toronto there in between, but to Toronto for high school. And that was an interesting sort of experience there for taking me into an environment that was more of a multicultural environment. Made wonderful friends, at the Lamoureux Collegiate High School when I was there in Scarborough. So that was kind of there. And in there, in terms of interests, what led to Queen's University and sort of got me going, that starts to begin this story of where I've arrived at now, is I did a drama degree. So really heavy interest in human behavior, heavy interest in performance, in acting, in directing, in wanting to, direct theater, put things together, and had wonderful experience there in the if you want to do an undergraduate degree, Queen's University is a great place to go because it's that sort of its own island in terms of having lots of fun and made great friends and did that thing. But when I look at the through line into where I am now, that's sort of getting into human behavior and doing that. As we keep going through the timeline, then I took a year off, worked a bunch of waitering jobs and saved up a bunch of money. I ended up at acting school in New York City for a year.
Got it.
And that was even a deeper dive into human behavior and performance. And I think I learned more maybe from living in New York than going to school, but school was great. And again, got deeper into that area and came out and always wanted to be and became a director and producer in television eventually. Got into working in TV Ontario in Toronto, met my wife during the 90s in that time. She's in theater. So we met sort of in theater type settings. And then I was working in the TV business. And then funny enough, she got work. We were in Toronto and you think you'd probably stay there for a while, but she got work in Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay is a little town on the north of Lake Superior and, in Canada. And we headed up there, 100,000 people. Went from the big smoke to that sort of setting. She worked at Magnus Theatre. I ended up working at CBC Radio there and learned how to tell stories for the ear, which beautiful then informed
city. Very beautiful.
The podcasting part. You know what I mean? When you think about some of those things, you kind of bolt together and start to get along. So I did that for a little while on contract. And then she got work at the Fringe Festival in Edmonton. And that brought us out here to, we've been here ever since. My kids are born at the Grey Nuns Hospital. I have a son, 25-ish. My daughter's going to be 23. They're here. And so we came out and I had what I call my corporate stretch when we got out here around 01-ish. Got going at Access Television, did contracts and then got in there full time and then worked at the television business. Was really fun to be a producer in, like produce commercials, educational television, a lot of communications work you can hear in there. So you can hear me interest in human behavior, interesting communications in terms of what that was. And then about 05 is when the last takeovers, Blockbuster was going down, Netflix is going up. The revenue dollars, if there was hundreds and hundreds of people working in television around that time in the city, it just dwindled and those packages went out the door. And I finally got packed out in 2012 when I was the manager of creative services and marketing for City TV, owned by Rogers here in Edmonton. And that was, so you can imagine having produced all that stuff over the years for education, commercials, understanding the visuals, directing, producing, leading people, leading teams. That whole bundle was in there. But 09, before starting to read the tea leaves, is I said, well, I need to make a career change because this is shifting. And I got into the MBA program at the University of Alberta. And the natural thing would have been to come out to probably marketing executive of sorts once that was done, except there was a guy teaching org strategy in the MBA program. And I watched him put that stuff up on the whiteboard and I went, what? You can go into an organization and essentially help them to improve the whole place? And that's what I wanted to do. In fact, I ended up hanging a shingle in 2012 when I got out from the MBA program. And I've been an independent ever since then, working with, on a given day, going in to work with a board of directors in nonprofit, going in to work with a small drilling company to completely transform the culture, going in to work with high stakes commercial team at $1 billion company in Mexico, like this kind of thing. It's taken me around the world. I've done speaking engagements and done a variety of sort of different things along the way to ultimately lead to where I am now, this sort of pinnacle of, if I had to define, my sort of, raison d'etre is sort of just to be, is organizational excellence by starting with the leadership team to empower them so they can optimize their entire organization. That would be fundamentally where everything has landed. But that bundle that I'm describing on the way through, starting with the human behavior, being able to produce projects, see them, get them completed and delivered, working at all different levels of communication, and then putting that all together to then go into real world settings and help leaders to move forward faster, help them to fill in the gaps that they don't have in their toolkits because of my combined experience now working with the clients and then all that other experience going in years gone by. I just spent 20 minutes with a fellow this morning. If I can spend 20 minutes with you, 20 hours, 200 hours, I can make a difference. And it's nice to be confident about that now. And I'm super excited about it. And it's led to this wins appreciative inquiry thing that you were talking about in the intro, as opposed to earlier years in my independent consulting, doing that thing around what keeps you awake at night. Now I come in and say, hey, tell me about your biggest win. And what's interesting to me now, having talked to hundreds of people about that, having, interviewed more than 50 leaders on the podcast for a year, folks aren't really good at coming at it from that perspective. They're really comfortable complaining, very comfortable talking about what's wrong, but not as comfortable saying, oh, yeah, so I did this. This was my win. And then how do you tell that story? So now I'm at a neat point where I can pull all that together and start with that simple question. And funny enough, when I get chatting with people, and I'll just ask you because we're chatting, if you had to describe your biggest win or one of them in the work that you do, what would that win be and how would you describe it? It's an honest question.
I think it's understanding the concept of quote unquote, like what freedom means, because freedom means different things to different people. So for me, to understand the concept, like what freedom really is. My son, 14-year-old son, understands freedom very differently. I'm 41 years old now. I understand freedom very differently. So I think that is a personal win. From a corporate point of view,
I'm just going to say, I'll just pick up on that. That's really interesting. So you understanding what freedom is your win. And you mentioned anatomy of a win in the intro. So just play along with me for a second. I mean to really demonstrate this to sort of show our So if we get into the anatomy of a win, say, great, understanding freedom is the win. So let's look at the strategy, work plan, people, operations, and results behind that. What are the strategically highlights? What values, vision, mission, goals led to understanding freedom for you? So
one thing I understood is like everyone has the same 24 hours and we have a finite time in this planet, right? And how do we make maximum use of it, ROI? We can add different jargons to it. So certain things I understood. I just wrote a post yesterday that I completed 20 years in the software engineering industry, started in 2006, and it's been 20 years. Great. And I think there have been a lot of optimization, automation, and trying to help other corporations and companies and whatnot. So I didn't think a lot for a long time. I was just doing my job, doing my thing, I was working in different corporates across different countries. Then at some point, I understood what actually I want to do in life. And because somewhere along the way, I've done it all and then I want to do something different. So that's when we started Zadwell, and I started pursuing entrepreneurship more seriously because I never understood what it was. I am not a sales guru. I'm not a business development guru. But at the same time, something after COVID, probably the lockdown and a lot of things that's happening. So you're not meeting people as often. So somewhere along that, I realized that the power of human connection is far more important than anything else. So if you make a sale, if you make a project, if they are our client, it's great. All of that I wanted to be a byproduct, but not the main intention of reaching out to people. So I was very particular in creating those long-term relationships with people, which we have succeeded. So many people are just a text away. And I think podcast helps, being on social media helps. So tomorrow I want to be able to be in that position where we are actually, so freedom is the fundamental engine or vessel. I'm probably using Zadwell and Pathfinders. All these are just vessels for me to navigate life. And ultimate goal is freedom of time, freedom of location, and freedom of money. So those are the things I'm walking towards or running towards.
Well said. And it's so fun to hear, the values underneath that, and again, just play along with me, and I don't mean to railroad this.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Hang in there. So
go ahead.
We've got your, if understanding freedom, what it is, the way you say the strategy, in a sense, those are highlights about how you're getting it, that why you're getting it done. Anytime we have a strategy, we need a work plan. So there was a moment when you didn't understand what freedom was. What year was the last year that you didn't understand what freedom? When did this journey start to understand freedom? Was it 10 years ago, 15 years ago? What year would that have been?
For a long time, I was not like critically thinking about life, what I'm going to do in life. And like, I got out of college and like, I think everyone were happy the moment I got a job. It was a corporate job from a very prestigious company. My mom and dad were more happy than I was. I did not even understand that moment. But it took me a while to even understand what did I just sign, right? So it took me a while to actually understand and process. I thought the higher salary would be that. I thought the higher title would be that. So they said, you have to climb the ladder to be happier. I did climb the ladder and I did get those titles and those salaries and everything. Then I saw I was not happy. Then I started talking to people who are also in the same title, who had also climbed the ladder and talking. And I asked them, like, they were also not very happy. It was puzzling to me because they chased the title, the mansions, the cars, the BMWs, whatever, right? I'm nothing against BMW. These are great cars. But they were chasing it, but they were also not happy. So I think I made that a priority in terms of like, I think whatever it is, whether I make much or less, I think happiness and joyful living is some of my leading motivators to be doing whatever we're doing. Funny enough, I'll tell you about this podcast. So initially I thought, okay, fine. I don't have $10 million to market the business. So let me start a podcast and start reaching out. And there are going to be millions of people reaching out. None of that happened, Gordon. You know it. I know it. None of that happened. But you know what? Along the way, I started enjoying those conversations and the relationships. So that's what I come back to because I started enjoying that.
There's a moment when you accepted an offer as a young software engineer, you know what I mean? And you thought you were on your way. And then somewhere in there, your true self started to push through. If you had a moment, was there an epiphany moment? Was there a year and month or a moment in there that was an epiphany that you're like, I better get on this freedom exploration concept?
Yeah, because I'm just trying to think what that moment was. I would have forgotten. But I think it was probably building momentum of its own over a period of time. It was not a moment, but somewhere along the way.
And so if we get in there, we can say that your journey to understanding freedom, if that's the win, is at least 15 years, 20, 25 years. How many, what's a rough estimate?
Probably 15 plus years is what I would say.
15 plus years, right? Yeah. And so now what do we know? We know the strategy part of wanting to obtain the freedom. You know that you have the mechanisms to do it. You describe that as a highlight. Then you say, well, this is taking 15 plus years to actually get done. If we went and got the timeline on the whiteboard right now, we would actually hit the highlights along the way. I came home that one day from work. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. Whatever those moments were along the way. And then I tried this and I did that, those things. Strategy, work plan, people. There's always people involved in a win. And the thing that I'm really fascinated by when I ask that question to say, well, if understanding freedom was the big thing, how would you describe your attitude before you understood freedom? And how would you describe it after your attitude, if you had to describe it?
Yeah, my attitude towards the life I was building, I think one thing I was really fortunate is in terms of like discernment. Discernment is one thing I take it as a gift. And the other one is pattern recognition. Because some of these things, I could see a pattern evolving from my behavior because of certain things when I'm in a certain environment. And at the same time, how the environment tries to push certain things on me. So was I enjoying it or not enjoying it? Sometimes I had to put up a face whether I liked it or not. Seems like that's what certain people wanted actually. So, but I was not enjoying that. I wanted to be my true self, be authentic, have the genuine conversation. So I wanted to build my life, my attitude towards like those healthy, authentic relationships. So that's where my attitude change happened. And I think COVID helped a lot in a way. There was a lot of isolation and not talking to enough people. I was in a grocery store in Ontario. I used to live in Ontario at the time, Brantford. So I was in a grocery store. Everyone were masked up. You remember the COVID period? Everyone were masked up. And there was this little girl. She's probably 2 or 3 years old. The kids were not like, they didn't need to have a mask, right? So after probably for an entire month, I have not seen anyone in person. And I went to this grocery store and this little girl was there. I could see her face. She was smiling. And that moment told me a lot of stories. She was not thinking about the past. She was not thinking about the future. She was in the moment with full of joy, right? So yeah, I tell often that sometimes the kids are the best teachers to adults because we forget how to be in the moment.
And so you're a bit right. Automated, you know what I mean? In your life was going to be a certain thing. You probably could have ridden it out, had the BMWs and done the stuff. And then you've made this shift and your attitude shifted along the way. And it sounds like you're a lifelong learner who's you're not even halfway done. You're learning. Do you know what I mean? Like you've got so much more runway for the approach that you're taking to things. Strategy, work plan, people. Additionally, if we're going to make a change, and by the way, with people, we could talk about the other people in your lives. We could talk about your family. We could talk about your relatives. We could talk about the clients or things that have influenced, this thing of understanding freedom along the way. But I don't mean to break all that out right now. What I do mean to say is operations as the fourth step. You have to operationalize a concept like this, right? So when you are understanding freedom, what did you do? Did you read a book? Did you talk to somebody? Did you have an experience? How did you operationalize understanding freedom?
Yeah, I in terms of like, I really started paying more attention in terms of like what is, because we often talk about sovereignty, right? Sovereignty, when we say sovereignty, the moment it comes, okay, fine, borders, countries, that's what everyone thinks about. But what about an individual sovereignty, right? So I started paying more attention to an individual sovereignty, like how is one's time appreciated or not appreciated? Right. So I think that matters a lot to that individual. When a bunch of individuals in a country, in a city are happier, the province or the state will be happier also. So is the country, right? So I started paying more attention to that. And I think that's where this whole concept of freedom and everything probably it sprouted by its own in terms of like, because what is stopping me? If, for example, we have this house, so whether we have mortgage or not, whatever. So that kind of like fixes me to a location. So I'm not a huge fan of like being in that location forever. It kind of like, yes, the city, community, I love all of that. But at the same time, is it limiting me or is it helping me grow? So I started paying to every little thing that was actually trying to. Do you see the spider, which is actually over a period of time, let's say when we take a debt or anything like that, a lot of entanglements. When you're suddenly caught in a spider's web, there's a lot of entanglements that happens in a person's life. And I think the way I see it is like if you are able to untangle as many spider web from your life and probably like jump off that web, I think is what ultimately would be looking at. But anyway, long road to go. But
no, I love it because what happens is you're talking about how to put it into action, which is this idea of observing around you and then thinking about the spiderweb image. And again, we could dig in more there. So it's just almost done here. Strategy, work plan, people, operations, results, quantitative and qualitative results. When you understand freedom, what are the quantitative results? Did you get more business? Did you lose weight? Did you gain relationships? Like what were the quantitative measurables in a sense that understanding freedom provided?
Protecting time, because like I've been in corporate jobs. I was in meetings that I never wanted to be in, right? And oh no, you're supposed to attend that 9 a.m. meeting. Like, no, now I have it. Like I can definitely manage my schedule, which is a huge plus. And I can manage who I can reach out to, who I'm working with, who I'm not working with. So those are some like decision-making flexibilities that it's a bonus. So quantitatively, I'm able to like control my time and my schedule, I guess.
Control my time and schedule. And again, we could dig in more there. Finally, there's also qualitative results. How's it feel to understand freedom and have this life that you've built? What's it feel like?
Yeah, like Tuesday morning, I'm meeting with a person who's a business friend, and like Wednesday, I'm meeting with another person. So it's I'm using my time to build those relationships because for a long time I have not paid attention to people. But end of the day, whether robots will come, but regardless of that, I want to have a good, strong relationship with people. Maybe 20 years after, maybe I'll start thinking about the robots. Not right now. So I want to build those, whether we are building a business, selling or not selling. So I think the relationship go a long way. I started paying more attention to that. I was not a people person because I never paid any attention to it. Yeah. So
now you're on this sort of gift of a ride where you got the realization, understanding freedom. And thank you for going along with me for the anatomy of a win. What happens is the reason I'm explaining that, you said, introduce yourself. I gave you my back history. I took you through some of the highlights and the chunks that I've put into place to get here. The eloquence of what we've just done, if I describe it now as sort of an iceberg. So the tip of the iceberg is, tell me about your biggest win. And then I say, let's go through the anatomy of a win. And again, I just did that with you in less than 10 minutes or 10 minutes. And what did we learned a ton about you. And I've done that over and over again. And it used to be consulting wise, because I'm really loaded for bear in terms of super excited about all the different things that we can do, to help an organization. And I used to come in with everything all at once in a conversation and say, let's build an organization strategy plan. It's going to be great. Blah, blah, blah. And people would just gloss over and it wasn't accessible. for them. By starting with the win, what we do is we learn something about you. And then by introducing you to the anatomy of win, that's a framework that you literally can use to build your business. And if I get in working with somebody, then we go below the water on those things. And we start to get into say, okay, let's run down the rabbit holes of strategy. Let's run down the rabbit holes of operations. Let's run down the rabbit holes of there. And that's where the longer engagements come from. It's the pinnacle of my work up to this point to start at this appreciative inquiry moment, build the framework. The framework is applicable in personal, in business. It's applicable anywhere. And then if I can get that framework rolling off of the tongue of all the leaders on the leadership team, or a business owner, or I'm going to go work with 50 managers in a municipality coming up in an engagement. If I can get this rolling off the tongues of all those people, now when they go to have a conversation about a win or a loss, they can use this framework and they're going to have a better conversation. It forces them to align around the strategy. It forces them to understand what a work plan is. It forces them to know what their attitudes were and their competencies around the people side. It gets them into thinking about operational components. And then the results piece has to be there anyway. And plus, as you know more than me about getting ready for AI and what those results things need to be. So that's the sneakiness of it, is that it sounds simple at the front end, but there it is. We get a win. Plus, you get insights. Please, at a networking event, just steal my question. The next time you go to meet somebody, don't say, who are you and what do you do? Say, tell me about your biggest win. You'll get a genuine, you watch the shoulders drop. They give you a genuine response because they're talking about themselves. They're saying something really interesting. And it's the framework that leads to a rich conversation that really pulls things out. So I'm very proud of having solidified this approach at this point. I know that it works for entire organizations, big and small. And my goal is to help people tell winning stories, better stories when they go to speak with each other. And this is how we can literally transform organizations. Because once I get through dropping off not only the anatomy of win, but the entire iceberg that's underneath that 600-page checklist that I've got under there to prompt and do things and refer. If we can get through that, and then they've suddenly got what I call the executive winning system in their hands, and they know this top to bottom, now they can actually optimize their entire organization, kick me out the door because they've learned everything they can from me, and they've got that on an annual basis to visit and actually strengthen their entire organization, make it more profitable, make it better from a soft skills point of view. There's all kinds of things that can go in there. So that's quite honestly the leading up to and pinnacle of all of my work coming together in this sort of eloquent way that it makes it super fun to meet new people now.
No, I love it. I just noted down. Tell me about your biggest win. I love that. Anatomy of the win. What was the motivation to create that, Gordon?
Well, I was telling you earlier, like I used to walk in, like if I'd met you a couple of, say 3-4 years ago, I would say, let me tell you about my organization plan. And I'd get super excited about it. And suddenly I'm talking about a whole bunch of stuff that maybe isn't in your main concerns. You might be concerned about, I don't know, let's say you're concerned about human resources, or you're concerned about market share, or you're concerned about whatever you're concerned about. And there I am talking about every aspect of your company, which I'm super excited about because I'm a good Yoda on the shoulder of the leader. Like that's my best spot, is to be whispering in the ear in a sense, working with and strengthening them until I'm not needed anymore. And you go off and fight your dad who's in a black costume. So that's that place where I play very well. So if I used to come in with that complicated conversation, it was really falling flat. And it's not that I didn't get into engagements and things, but it took a while for people to warm up and figure it out. Now, by coming in this way, I'll give you an example. I just did a 90-minute tester with some people at the University of Calgary. I'm now going to be teaching at the University of Calgary in their corporate training area, delivering for corporate clients out of there because I've got a fan down there. It's like, oh, come on in. Let's deliver this as day 4 of a 4-day process down there. Well, to warm up, I went in with the program managers. I worked with them for 90 minutes just to deliver and say, here's a taste of gourd. Now, what happens in the 90 minutes is I take them through. They learn the anatomy of a win. They learn how to build a wins list. They learn also how to celebrate wins. And I just got off a video call with someone the other day, and they went, oh, thanks for coming down to do the 90 minutes. Take a look at this. Spaghetti wouldn't fit in this jar anymore, but look, I put the W right on the front. Now, when anybody walks in my office, I say, that sounds like a win. Write it down and put it in the wins jar that Gord suggested that we do. It reframed the way they speak with each other when somebody walks into that office now. They now do Wins Wednesdays as an appreciative way for each other. To be able to make impact in 90 minutes, that culture changes and makes a huge difference. I'm super excited about it. Also, in doing the podcast, which has been out for a year, and you know about that, and Kelly Kennedy knows about that, and way more than I may ever know with the 300 plus he's got going and all the good he's putting out in the world. I've met 50 leaders now that are super senior leaders, CEOs of large organizations, this kind of thing. I noticed that in elbows up time in Canada, when we're talking about this big shift that we're in, the leaders aren't, in my opinion, knowledgeable about how to tell a winning story effectively. Some of them are, but many of them are not. So now this framework and this approach helps them to also tell a winning story outbound for the world as well. So it's a powerful framework. I'm super excited to have it solidified at this moment in time and walk into any conversation with anybody at any level of an organization. There's nobody who doesn't get it in terms of any aspect of what I'm talking about. It can be more complex if it needs to, but imagine the alignment that we can create throughout organizations by having a common, it's not a 1, 2, 3 step, like it's a 5 step. It makes you think, but if we can get it ingrained, then we've got a real good chance.
Got it. Tell me more about it. Like, what does it entail? I mean, because I have. Let me give you an example. Let's say I've been in networking meetings. You have been in networking events, and whatnot. So it's an hour, 45 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever, different time spans, right? So you meet 20 or 30 people. I found one pattern recognition I saw was like the conversation was not as deep, right? Oh, we introduce. Okay, fine. I'm Vijay. Okay, you're who? You're John. You're Michelle, whatever, right? So we do that. We introduce, I'm from this, you're from that. Oh, I do this, you do that. So distilling from 20 people, probably you have like quality conversations with 1 or 2 people, right? And we don't know what's happening in the other person's life that day. They may have had a great day, or they may be having the worst day of their life. You never know. So I thought, okay, fine. I would rather spend more quality time than quantitative. Right? Okay, I met with 200 people versus like I met 20 people, but I know all 20 of them in person. So if you were to like talk to that and map it to anatomy of a win, so if you're in a networking setting when you're meeting people,
honestly,
how do we apply this framework?
What happens is you can see that I found my opening question.
Got it.
For networking. So at a networking event, it would go like this. Like if I met you, you would say, who are you, Gord? And I could say, oh, I'm Gord. I run executive wins and I do this thing. And instead of me saying, who are you? I actually just start with that question. I go, you know what? Can you tell me about your biggest win in your work and tell me why that happened? Well, suddenly you said, I understand what freedom is. That's unforgettable. That is literally, I'll be like, I know the guy who understands what freedom is. Right? And that's remarkable because over and over again, like on the podcast, for example, when I say that first question to the leader, I say, hey, what is it? Someone says people. Someone says a 20-year overnight success story. Someone says, I got clarity in an ambulance. Didn't know if I was going to live, but I knew exactly what I needed to do if I was going to come out and win in the future to run my company. It's rich. So now what's happened is we took the time. In my world, I took the time to find an opening question that makes sense. But what does that do for people? Also, we don't have a very good muscle for expressing wins. We're really good at being modest. Canada, We're real good at saying sorry and aw shucks, and we didn't say it, except in elbows up time, in my opinion now, if you don't get that out further faster, and I don't know that you are a software genius, I don't know that you have the AI solution pathway to make my company better, then I don't know. And we don't get a chance to build productivity and capacity. I do a lot of work in the technology space in Alberta around facilitating moments there because you can hear me. Like I bring in the communication style and I provoke as well to try and get things to go forward. I've met genius inventors, like guys who build robots, and they just honestly shouldn't be talking out loud to the world because they haven't taken the time to learn the communication side. But when you say to someone like that, tell me about your biggest win, it gives them a pathway, and then the structure of the conversation gives them a pathway to describe their story. Now, the sneaky part is if I spend a little bit more time with them, I want them to have that structure for life if they can practice that. But it does take a bit of practice because then you're like, oh yeah, what is my strategy? Oh yeah, what is my competency set? What is my time? What is a timeline? So it makes you think about how that goes. So at a networking event, I can't say enough about finding a question that's not who are you and what do you do? Because there's also a rhythm in that kind of breaks down in networking. But this one about tell me about your biggest win, I mean, there's so many wonderful stories because you hear them. I found my dream job. Do you know what I mean? Like someone, so suddenly you're going to spend 5-10 minutes. Maybe it'll be someone that you don't want to spend time with or you do, but they'll tell you something interesting. One woman I met at a networking event, I'll never see her again. She goes, oh yeah, I fit women with right-sized bathing suits. And I was like, what? And she goes, yeah. And then she told me about all through this conversation about why that's so important. She gave me insights into the psychology of women. She talked about the pride in work that she had in helping them to find the right bathing suit. I mean, it's just It just goes on and on and on. Joe Johnson, who was on the podcast, he runs JPS Construction. His story is unbelievable. So again, getting back to getting him on the show to talk about the win, what did he say? He said, I was 22 years old. I'd worked in the oil patch in Texas for a number of years, came back to Edmonton and got into snow clearing. He won the contract to clear the snow in the parking lot at Costco in St. Albert. Pretty cool.
Right.
Did that for a bit, got good at it. And then he leveraged that thing to apply to win an RFP for this procurement job for a massive, like huge mod yard or whatever, like for where the snow is going to hit. This one, he said the first snowflake hits the ground, you better be there with your skid steer, clearing that snow out of there or whatever. Wins that job. And he said he's 22-ish and 23, when he gets the job, he wins the RFP. They'd never met him. So he goes to a meeting and everyone's the presidents, the project managers, you give him a high pressure, high meeting because they want to meet the guy who's going to do this part of the contracting. He says he looked like Annie. Do you know that musical Annie? He's got that orange hair or whatever. He's got like cargo shorts on or whatever. It looks like this little kid. He's not in a suit. Walks in the room and they look at him and they're like, I don't know if we've hired the right guy. Well, you got the contract. You better get it done. Gets it done really well. Company grows and grows and grows. They bring a family friend into the company who's supposed to be this mentor, someone who's done business before. Things are going great. Things are good. Joe goes into the office one day and there's something off and he goes and finds a pile of receipts and he finds out that this family friend stole the money. And he has to declare bankruptcy. And his parents are co-signed on the loans. They have to come out of retirement and the only thing CRA left them with was their house. And they had a 2011 SUV. That was it. And they couldn't do anything about it. He was bankrupt. What did he do? He went back to Costco and he said, have you got anything for me? They said, I don't think so. Okay, you know what? We got the garbage run. Do you want to do the garbage run? They got the garbage run. Him and his parents going out midnight to 8 a.m., doing the garbage runs around the Costco's in Edmonton with their little SUV, picking up garbage. And that's how they cash flowed through that time. He said he paid $1 for $1 on the bankruptcy, not 5 cents on the dollar. He said he knew he had to work here in Edmonton again, so he paid $1 for $1 to get his way out of bankruptcy, and he did it. Eventually, paid back his parents all that amount, and now they're invested in his new company, making $15 million a year in construction currently in the current scenario. And one of the things I said to him was, that's stunning as a win. Stunning. He's in late 30s. And I said, how did you do it? How did you have that resilience? He said, you know what? I've traveled. I've probably traveled to more than 60 countries. And when I traveled around the world, most people can't even start a business. Most people don't have the privilege that we have in Canada to go bankrupt and come back from bankruptcy. And I could do that. And what a gift it is to be here in Canada to have that opportunity. I'm like, oh my God, that is just an unforgettable story, again, over a long period of time. And isn't that amazing to have that along the way? I'll tell you 50 more stories if you keep me going here. We'll be here for hours. It's just that thing of over and over again. And what did I learn from you? Now I know the guy who understands what freedom is. It's just a great, great opening question because you get a really authentic approach. And then what I'm trying to do is really be encouraging to people to say, yeah, and you got to tell people that.
Yeah.
I would say that to you. Please tell people now that you understand what freedom is, because I can tell you there's a lot of leaders that feel trapped in the way that you did and the people in the corporate world that you knew were trapped. And it would be a gift for them to hear you authentically, vulnerably say, yeah, I know what freedom is and I've earned it over time. And here's how, and here's my experience. And maybe they could get something from you. So I'm just, every time now when I'm running into leaders and giving them hopefully a gift of communication in this way that's got all kinds of legs for making things better.
Very, very interesting, Gordon. So you started with art, drama, and other things. You had a radio career in between. In Thunder Bay, you mentioned. Beautiful city, by the way. I mean, when we moved from Ontario to, it took 3-4 days, I think, to drive.
Oh, you drove it, and you went over to North Superior. Did you stop at the Terry Fox Monument?
We did.
Unbelievable, right?
Unbelievable. And you get to see the bay from there, right? It's a beautiful place. The Terry Fox, yeah, I remember that.
He ran 143 marathons before he stopped right around there, halfway across Canada in 1980. I wrote a book about effective meetings. Funny enough, you were mentioning meetings before. And when I go to talk about it, at the end, I always say, what inspires you? And I always say, the reason I say that for people is, yeah, you're having a hard time with meetings. You don't like somebody in meetings. By the way, what inspires you? And we hear these great stories. I always start with the Terry Fox story as a way, because Terry Fox really does inspire me. 143 times. They've raised over $900 million since he did that in 1980. for cancer research around the world. I mean, it's just that memorial is just a bucket list. Please go there. I need to get to Newfoundland and find out where he put his foot in the water and see that one too. But yeah, isn't that great? Thunder Bay, love it.
It's beautiful, actually. I mean, my friend called me, like, we started leaving. Okay, where are you? Did you reach at Alberta? And no, it's just day one. We are still in Ontario. Ontario is so big. It takes more than 24 hours to cross Ontario, and we stopped there somewhere in between for the night, I think. But great place, Thunder Bay. And you also mentioned Blockbuster, the times of Blockbuster and where took off. I used the example of Blockbuster failing, actually, and how Netflix took over. I think Netflix reached out to Blockbuster for an acquisition, and they rejected it.
They rejected it. That's right. And Netflix was right place, right time, and then it became a gargantuan. Yeah.
And they had a moment where they could have been the Blockbuster still, right? I have rented movies from Blockbuster video rentals, but anyway, it's a lost opportunity.
Lost opportunity and a stuck executive. The whole executive in the media world just put their head in the sands. Newspapers had the audience. They never translated the audience. They never moved with the platforms. Netflix was a disruptor, but Blockbuster could have had that. IBM at one point, long time ago, was in the real estate business. And there was a moment when they were losing $6 billion a year I can't remember, I'm just trying to think of MBA case study back in, if I call it the 60s or the 70s. New CEO comes in and says, we're out of hardware.
Right.
Really tough on senior leaders to get through those moments of disruption, because I think the VPs are frightened. When I watch the television VPs, they were just there to, I think, essentially stamp out and go along. But to actually have like Ted Rogers was a disruptor, 2 major moments that he got through when he was there pioneering in radio, and then he pioneered in cable, and then he pioneered in telecom. But that took him raising the capital and being gutsy and all kinds of things that he did along the way. But a lot of those VPs then, they were just there to, build those retirements and do that stuff. So there wasn't the sort of collective ability to sort of save, in a sense, or the media thing. And now what's so funny is you turn on your YouTube or whatever, and it's the same as it was in in 2002, it's the same ads, it's the same. So the ad dollars never went away. They just had to park in a different place. And we went through a free moment that got you on the drip. And now it's more advertising, I think, than we've ever seen, funny enough.
How do you see, coming from a media landscape, you've seen their media person, you've spent enough time there, and now podcasting is taking over, right? In a decentralized fashion, pretty much around the world. I mean, there are new podcasts like every day, I guess, on every platform. How do you see that taking shape? You've been there. Now you're seeing a new media kind of like sprouting every single day. How do you see that?
I'm like, I'm a bit of a dinosaur to a certain degree. Like, I'm so fat, like we're on Riverside right now. I can't believe that, something that took 3 or 4 people in my department back when I was using, beta cams or whatever it was, the different technology at the time. The fact that you can do so much on your iPhone now, it's just a different era, and it democratized content production. One of the most successful content producers was a financial man that I know of, was a financial services guy, just got into making stuff, and he sells TV series around the world in the food space just because he could get access to all the stuff. So the democratization of it all, the consumption of it all, the mass production of all these things and what it was, and I guess what seems rapidly now, but that last 20 years that we've been in, and you could follow you could just watch YouTube, be a little YouTube, and then the juggernaut that it is now. It's fascinating to me these days because good content still has to break through. You still have to find an audience. And there's just so many opportunities for niches, in terms of what we're doing. So I never actually, having the skills to do the podcasting, I didn't imagine how rich it would be. And I'm just going to go back to Kelly Kennedy, who you know well. And I've had key moments of advice. He's been so generous along the way. And him with his 300 plus episodes or whatever, and the Energizer Bunny, and he's a hope dealer. That's what someone called him. I thought that was so good. Dealer. Hope dealer. So I love the luck of knowing him. And when I first started, he goes, "Oh yeah, just do 100 episodes." And I was like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean 100? Like if I get 10 done?" And funny enough, I've got through the year, so I'm 52 or whatever it is now, like a legitimate number, and I don't know, 40,000 plus views on YouTube, and a couple thousand, on the audio side, and it's just what it is. But like you said earlier, the relationships are unbelievable. And the quality of conversations, incredible. And so starting to amplify those things now, reach out in those appropriate ways to make those connections run deeper, introduce people that I've met to each other that I'm not even going to necessarily be involved with in the future. There's a guy named Jerry Hanna was on the show. Jerry Hanna's a really great entrepreneur in Alberta, did his thing in his 40s, sold his first company, got bored, built another company, software company, sold it, didn't really like software. Someone came to him because he's in the construction chemistry kind of area. And he goes, hey, Jerry, we've got some trouble with some water beside one of these major highway projects. Can you do anything? Suddenly he's got a fish tank in his basement. 19 years later, 10 patents. They're in 5 countries. They're serving they're doing clients like the city of Los Angeles, city of Toronto. They're going to solve tailings ponds issues through chemistry in the oil sands. I mean, just an unbelievable guy who then is a Métis dude who won. I saw him win an award at the Technology Alberta Awards, and what a great guy. And he wins it for his support of Indigenous issues. And that was super cool. So that's him in water. Well, then another guy on the show was Randy Volk. Randy runs Row Irrigation and Landscaping out of Medicine Hat. They do major projects like irrigation, redo the irrigation in Horlock Park in Edmonton, this major levels. He also advises municipalities in water. Well, then I introduced those 2 guys. And I don't know what they're going to do with that, but they wouldn't have met without that being that hub, that relationship builder. And look at the amplification that those 2 brains can go together. I'm super proud of starting to put those things together now, whether it's supporting leadership, supporting specific issues, but I wouldn't know that without the podcast openers and the same type of conversation that we're having today, this great conversation. It's very rare to have a 30 to 40 hour long conversation in this way to run deep. So those are very unique opportunities.
Got it. I would segue into a different area, and maybe we will come back to executive wins and everything else. One thing that I was speaking to Brad Warren of Calgary, he's run multiple businesses, I think more than 20 plus businesses. He was on the podcast, and something we were sharing also on the Authentic Hustle or otherwise, the journey of a leader sometimes gets super lonely, super stressful, super challenging at times, right? They do say it does get lonely at the top, and it does. I've seen it happen and experiencing it myself. So, and at the same time, there's a lot of pressure to perform and all of that for leaders. Right. So how do you see leaders managing that? And you have come across certain things. Are there any ways of like managing it better? Or how do you respond to that?
Funny, having done a bunch of coaching with a wide variety of leaders. The first entry point is self-awareness. Do you have self-awareness of yourself? And if you don't, then let's start there. And I'm just stunned at how much is available for someone if they're ready to explore their inner voice. So then the commonalities in the executive coaching, certainly in the one-on-one, imposter syndrome. I'll never understand financials. I mean, those are quotes from sessions that I've been in, those types of things. But if you can get the self-awareness started, whether it's a personality assessment, getting a therapist, getting a mentor, doing those things, and then starting to really work on that and turn it into true leadership, which then builds real full companies, not just dollar-driven companies, but people, and well-rounded out. But it starts with you on the self-awareness side. And then once you've got that self-awareness and you get up a level when you're starting to then build outwards because you're working at your best, then you can start to build those teams, in that right way to build, that robustness around you. And hopefully with the self-awareness, as you realize your pitfalls, because you're exactly right around what I've seen and I know in my own experience, you have those moments where, and it's so funny, it's just like your 12-year-old self. Nobody understands me, everybody hates me, or whatever those things are that we have as natural human beings. Finding those ways to work through that. And I've got a little, funny enough, in the workshops I do now, I have a little bracelet. I wonder if I've got it on. Well, let me just see if I can find it. For video, I'll throw this up here for a second. I don't know if you can see that. There are 3 little W's that I've got. They're little if you put the string through and you can see 3 little W's on a little bracelet. I get participants to wear this bracelet. If I put this bracelet on you right now, I would ask you to put your 2 fingers around the first W and think about a personal win. Then I'd say, hold the second one, find a family win. And I'd say, get the third one and find a work win. Well, what have we just done? Through breathing through that, through recentering, we remember what's gone well. And in a moment, that might be another little technique that people can have in those lonely leader moments to work their way out. One of my favorite coaching questions when you're talking about that too is, I'll say, who do you listen to?
Right. Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'll just ask you, who do you listen to?
I listen to a wide variety of topics, not just business. Politics, I started to ignore politics a little bit, just for my own sanity.
Yeah, right.
But I do pay attention to what's happening. I don't watch news since 2019. No watching news. But I do listen to a lot of different podcasts. I listen to Jay Shetty. I listen to Mel Robbins.
And these become sort of mentors in your world of sorts because you can take their ideas forward. And I'll back it up into your business. So who do you listen to about your business? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a friend?
I like PBD. PBD brings some insights from a business point of view. Valuetainment.
No, I'm not talking about podcasts. I'm talking about
okay,
people.
you're talking about. Got it.
So is there someone that you listen to when things aren't going right in your business, for example?
I haven't had a dedicated mentor of sorts. My friends are my mentors.
I'll just jump right into that, and I'm going to say that's 99% of the responses that I get. So when you're saying when leaders are like, "Oh, I'm so lonely and it's hard at the top," I'm like, well, "Okay, who do you listen to?" And what we don't have is what you're doing, which is that ability to build relationships. Because we're in a maverick North American Western setting. Do it all. Do the whole thing. The great leader, the guy who broke through, but what we're learning from people like Mel Robbins, what we're learning from vulnerability, Brene Brown's. Do you know what I mean? What we're learning there is it doesn't make any sense. We sure do need to be listening to the best of what women leaders can bring to the situation right now, because this sort of lone thing, which we've been brought up to admire,
Tony Robbins, he's a great guy.
It's a disaster. It's a disaster. Yeah. So then that simple question of when I say, who do you listen to, is just hopefully a gift for the leader to go, oh, I've got to work on this now. And plus, especially the guys, generally in North America these days, pretty lousy at building relationships. So I love your story about, I better get intentional about this, because there are a lot of unhappy men, especially, who are just not good. It's just easier for them. They'll go off on their own and they'll survive, usually through bad habits, but they'll survive. Whereas look at what we're talking about now in terms of, you just said, well, a lot of leaders get lonely. I'm like, yeah, but it's their responsibility to then start to develop out these relationships for whatever their needs are. For advice, for guidance, mentorship, and whatever. So that's when you say, like, what do you think? I'm like, well, the 3 W's kind of work, I think, in my world. Knowing who to go and reach out to, knowing that you're going to reach out and fail a couple times. You'll meet a few people you don't like, but it's like picking a therapist. You got to get through the first couple till you land on the one that's going to get you through what you need to get through as you're going forward. So that's some of the solutioning I would recommend around what leaders might be able to use to get better and not feel that loneliness.
Yeah. Got it. Some of the words that I just noted down while we were speaking was like, that comes back as motivation words. It's like, okay, you got to have the resilience. You got to be relentless. You got to have the right mindset, quote unquote. You hear mindset a lot. Here, you got to be positive, optimism. Those are words thrown a lot. Blue sky thinking. You got to have a purpose, a mission, a vision, a line. All these are phenomenal words. I love them, by the way. And anytime you're not feeling great, your day is not going great, you got to be grateful, have that gratitude moment so that you can come back to what you're thankful for. All of that. I've done all of that. Not just me, but I've done all of that. But at the same time, there are some days it slips through the crack.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. And isn't that the human response, right? And so that thing of like, how do you give yourself a break? And I always say, like, if I'm watching too many golf videos on a TikTok, you know what I mean? Then I know it's time to get up from the desk and go do something different, because that's not productive. So.
Yeah. So I the question I wanted to ask out of all this, Gordon, is like, is there a quick 30-second reset? Let's say a day is not going great, right? When days are going great, Mondays are going great, phenomenal, right? It's going to be fantastic. But there could be some moments, 11 a.m., you're middle of the day, it's not great. You know the rest of the day is not going to be great after that. Is that a quick 30-second reset?
For me, it's the 3 W's to remind yourself about
3 W's? Okay.
The wins that are in your life. That's one. I know Mel Robbins got the 5 seconds or whatever. Dan Pink talks about optimal nap time is 25 minutes based on science. Take a nap. So again, I don't know that I'm saying anything necessarily unique or obvious, other than to give yourself the permission, instead of powering through with the coffee and trying to be productive when you're not, just that's acknowledging, going, wow, this isn't working right now. How do I get through to it? And then there's a self-responsibility, depending on leaders, how far you want to take your leadership. There's a self-responsibility in there to figure this out and not be dominated by our 12-year-old selves as we kind of go forward and creating a balanced leadership scenarios. It's funny about these techniques, but if it's just sort of, reading about them, and not taking action on them. So take your pick of whatever that's going to look like. And I think you would know this. You've run your own business. More hours doesn't get it done, right? Effective use of the hours that you've got within a reasonable period of time, along with rejuvenation and rest. I was just in Mexico for I think 9 or 10 days, and what a gift! Oh boy, to just get out of town and just be away. And we weren't even in a resort town; it was a little place called San Miguel. It's like old European streets, cobblestone, and all you do is meet artists and eat good food and go to writers' festivals and have wonderful conversations with people and my wife and my mother-in-law. It was just but that thing of really being away and that's past 7 days. Make sure you get that 2-weeker in there, and that'll do more for your leadership journey than anything else, depending on what's going on. So, I think these are tried and true and known. I don't know that I'm saying anything necessarily unique, other than just if you have that self-awareness, you can start to see what those triggers are.
I have the silver bullet. Are you ready? I know how to get out of that moment, like quick, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. This is what seems to work. Go get a bucket of ice cream and start eating. I was kidding. I didn't mean to say that.
Right?
but for real, what really works? Breathe. Just breathe. Drink water if you can. And then go for a 10, 15-minute walk. That's seems to kind of like shift the mood, actually.
And what's the one that the Marines do? And I don't have this exactly right, but it's that box breathing. Have you heard about that?
The 4-second in and 4-second hold and then 4-second release, something like that?
It really works. It works really, really well. Yeah.
So, breathing, drink water, and the walking kind of seems to help. Especially with Albert and Windows, it's different. So if you can just go walk in a gym, it's great. The other day, I was just walking inside the house.
Right?
I was just walking. Yeah.
I've done that in airports. I've done that in up and down the stairs here. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just something to get, and the motion is lotion, and that sort of gets things moving.
One thing I repeat time and time again to my friends and family, the other thing is like, you got to be like a river, like flow like a river. Right? The moment, at least I observe myself and others actually, when I am not flowing and I feel stuck. Actually, I got to be flowing.
I'll give you a quote from Randy Volk I was mentioning earlier in the conversation. He said, be the river, not the reservoir.
Exactly. I couldn't be the reservoir because when I'm a reservoir, there's tension building up and a lot of things happening, right? So you got to flow like the river. And I think that's where I see the flow state actually happening. So I recommend anyone to be the river, not the dam. So not the reservoir. Yeah. So other one I wanted to get into is like into your executive wins. Let's talk about executive wins. So you wanted to, how did you get about like starting a podcast? Were you always thinking about it, or like how did that?
Yeah, and it's funny about all those different things. I think as an independent, you try in marketing over the years. Do you know what I mean? You go to networking events, you do social media, you do different things. Part of the executive wins effort in the last couple of years has been to build a brand that pulls. So that push out, here's who I am, all that kind of stuff, which is still part of what I do. Of course, building a brand that pulls in and trying to validate this concept of saying, wait a second, how can I at least test this premise around executive wins? I wish it was a big dramatic thing. What I was able to do a couple of years ago was find the .com, executivewins.com. And I bought it for whatever,
right?
$25.
Great name, by the way.
So Executive Wins, great. Why? Well, I wanted to work with senior leadership teams because that's where I'm most effective, and that sort of sit into that kind of zone. And then, funny enough, I had been spending the previous year on just pulling my other materials together because I've had good success working 30 hours, 100 hours, 500 hours with companies where I then drop off an organization plan. Well, now that wins thing started to become okay. The anatomy of win, and it kind of grew from there. And then the eloquence that I can express it with now, which is what is the win? How do we get into it? That all sort of evolved as we were kind of going. And then I got about, 6 months into that kind of idea. And I was like, well, what's that next mechanism to go and just start to try this on with senior leaders and see what's going on? So I reached out to my LinkedIn. I did all that crazy LinkedIn, days and days of like individually reaching out. Would you like to be a guest on, I'm going to try and start this show. And I thought I'd do 10 or 15 episodes and go, I'll give it a go and see how that feels. And then started to meet and have these really interesting conversations. And so I'm testing it, at networking events, testing it online. Also, I'd come out of some other things where I'd been subcontracting and doing a variety of things. And I wanted to change who I knew. And I was wondering if having conversations with people might be one of those ways to go and have good conversations. And so, funny enough, a year later, that's what I've done. I've been able to have these great conversations with people, get to know them at sort of next level. We're not buddies necessarily, but certainly knowing them at an intimate level around some of their most important moments in their lives, and then being able to take those stories. I have one story that I tell. I'll just tell it to you, and you can tell me what your reaction is. I can tell you what I think your reaction is going to be. But at one moment when I'm teaching, I actually will say, "Okay, great. We know the anatomy of a win. Let's actually turn that around and call it and use it to call it the anatomy of a loss. And let's examine a loss, the strategy, the miss in strategy, the miss in work plan, the miss in people operations, the results behind a loss." And I tell the story of Kimberly Lyall. Kimberly Lyall is a professional speaker now, but when she was 26 years old, she was the CEO of a serious tourism nonprofit down in southern Alberta. And she's a wonderful, wonderful woman. And in that experience, she was like young and 26, and she's leading this organization. It's great. 2 years in, she gets in one day, gets a call from the bank, says, "You can't make payroll." She doesn't know what's happened, finds out the bookkeeper, financial controller, stole the money with a gambling addiction. They had no money left. There's 2 sets of books that had been cooked. One was the false set, one was the real reality. They had no money. 3 weeks later, the bookkeeper committed suicide.
Wow.
And this is where she was 28 years old. The board doesn't quite know what to do. Kimberly is in that moment. Okay, let's look at the anatomy of a loss. What happened strategically? What happened operationally around controls? What happened around the attitudes of people that we trusted people too much? What happened around the timelines and the checks? What happened around results not being measured properly? Why did the audits get through? All those things. You can examine now what happened. And that's really interesting when you can get into that area as well. So that's sort of another offshoot of, well, why start it? What did you get into? Where does it lead to? How does it grow? Almost innovatively, in a sense, to allow us now to have an objective way. And I got feedback about this in a workshop recently. Wow, that's an objective way to look at a loss. It's not a blame-driven way. It's an objective way to say, oh, right, we've got
consequences.
We've got a problem in our strategy. We've got a problem in work planning. We've got a problem in these different areas. And it again goes back to the framework, being able to do that. So that's sort of an interesting sort of flip on that in terms of how that goes as well. And so there's good stories and, again, tough ones to deal with that we deal with, in getting the podcast up and running. Funny enough, Kimberly went out and said, "Give me a month. I'm going to go talk to the people that we serve." She talked to them, got an earful. It was real bad in the community for many, many months or whatever. Kimberly took it on the chin. She started talking to the people that she served and found out they weren't doing the right things. Started to do the right things. Started turning things around. Started to get multi-million dollars of grants brought in. She said 4 years later, the auditors said, "We've never seen a turnaround like this." Unbelievable. And they were studied as a tourism destination 4 years later. Don't waste a good crisis is what that story becomes. So why start it? Got into it. Thought I'd do 10 or 15. 50 later, you can hear me going at story after story. And then I take again these stories out to other people like you and your audience here, or to the conferences that I speak at. And what are we doing? We're building leadership resiliency. We're actually getting people finding different ways to win, opening up their opportunity to tell a winning story, to talk about examining a loss. So it's been a very rich pathway for all the growth that has come from it in terms of what we're doing. And again, the possibility of impacting somebody within 15 minutes of hearing this concept is super exciting.
No. That's very valuable, actually. Some things like I saw a tagline, a headline for a person, Twitter, one of my friend, actually, he said, like, "I'm a recovering know-it-all person."
Right.
Right. So because there is a constant push, oh, I know it, and you know it, I know it. And now with the AI's advent, everyone knows everything, right? The AI is in their back pocket, right? So there's a natural inclination to answer with details for all questions, right? So somewhere along the way, I could be completely wrong here, Gordon. But I said to myself, what if I said I don't know? What's going to happen? What best can happen? Okay, like what am I trying to prove that I know? Because the moment I say I don't know, it actually gives, not just me, for anyone to try it actually, it actually gives the person an opportunity at least to go a basic research, a Google search or anything like that, or read a book, and at least get to know about that topic a little bit. You may not be an expert at it, but at least it gives you an opportunity to go learn what that is. So I started saying if I didn't know something, I would instantly say, I don't know. And I think that also kind of like builds trust over a period of times, right? Okay, fine. He doesn't pretend that he knows everything. I don't know. A real answer is not everyone knows everything, which is the fact. So that's what I'm learning. And why I spoke about that is because, like, in terms of like overall the societal structure, people are obsessed with success, but failure is looked very down upon, right? Failure is not a story anyone talks about. But actually, there is a quote that says, like, failure is the stepping stone of success. So unless there is failure, there wouldn't be success. There is no overnight success. You know it. I know it. It doesn't exist, at least according to me.
Again, the leaders I'm speaking to, I'm hearing a 20-year overnight success story.
Yeah.
10 years,
exactly.
10 years, 20 years. I hear these decades all the time in terms of earning what it takes. And I'm glad to hear you mention this kind of thing, and way to go for saying, I don't know. And again, just back to what I'm proud of in putting this framework together is creating the psychological safety to talk about it. It's our issue. It's not one, we're not pointing at anybody. We can pull together what we need to do to examine. And this is the whole idea. If we can use the anatomy of a win, anatomy of a loss to reverse engineer past win or loss, now we know what we can take out of it that we want to bring in to get our next win in the future. That's what is purpose built for.
Got it. Overall, from a leadership point of view, I've spoken to different leaders, spent time with a lot of like boardrooms and things like that. How do you see, I think everyone wants to grow. So growth is always there in their mind, right? So they want to go. But at the same time, there is also, from a leader's point of view, from a person's point of view, there's also certain things that they have to let go. Also, from an organization point of view, they have to let go. So there is growth and also letting go. How does that play together? When people are actually looking at growth, they're also not paying enough attention to let things go as well.
Yeah, it's so funny. And you often track that by revenue. So it's one thing to make your 100,000. It's one thing to make $1 million. It's another thing to make 10 million. It's another to make 100 million, depending on what level of company. And is that leader, the founder, as an example, if we take that journey, the right person to be at $1 million, the right person? I remember I've been in conversations, company I dealt with $8 million in revenue, and saying to the leader, you're not the right guy to go to 20. Not to be offensive, it's to say they've either got a lot of work to do to round out their skill set for the skill set that's required to take them in that direction, or they just won't be successful because they don't have a mindset. If you're thinking about the price of a hammer when you're moving on to build systems and processes, later on in that journey, that's important. The letting go part, the other part of letting go, and I'll just talk personally, and I think it's there for many leaders, is letting go of perfectionism. Good is better than sort of perfect, right? So that perfectionism, like again, back to self-awareness. And I can tell you all the perfectionism that I wish I hadn't done, because I lost a lot of time over years, whether it was in writing the perfect sentence or picking the right font or whatever, choosing a color, a hex color, all these things that I just shouldn't have had any business spending time on. And then that acknowledgement is saying, well, there's someone better at doing that than me. Let's go find who that person is. Like right now, I'm so grateful. I've got someone helping me, manage the podcast. And there's a whole bunch of parts of the back end of contacting and putting things up and she's just better at it than me. And so thank goodness she's there. And I really appreciate it. And that's the kind of thing where my stubbornness years ago would have been to try and do the whole thing. But while I was doing that, I wasn't out doing other things. So certainly in that solo scenario, needing that. But the perfectionism I would get at right away. Like, where are you at on the perfectionism scale? And is that one of the things that's limiting growth? And then the self-awareness is where you got to start. Because if you're limiting growth and you're getting, advice in around something that's, maybe going in a way where it is, and are you the right person to lead? This is where a lot of intergenerational family businesses break down. That thing of handing it to someone who doesn't have the competency to run an established business. A lot of those businesses right now, 20, 30 years and they're done well, but they're being transitioned to maybe kids that haven't been asked to go through a competency building process, and they're getting handed the company in a sense. And it's just the wrong choice because they're never going to get through to be able to succeed in the way that the founders did years before. So I'd check the perfectionism, again, back to who do you listen to? Like, what is that basic? Who do you listen to? Are you listening to whatever, M&A advisors? What are you getting around you to get the advice that you need to build your leadership chops? And it is possible to bolt in those skills, but you have to be able to get the right help and put in the time. Like it's not, that's 10,000 hours. It's not sort of easy to put everything together.
Got it. So what is the win actually, right? I mean, there is a win, there is an identity, then there is an inner alignment in terms of like overall how a person is looked at. And on the paper, things could look great. You might have like tens of millions of dollars as revenue, but internally that person could be miserable, right? I've seen that time and time again. Very unhappy people. You look at them, like people would be like be jealous to have those kind of things. But you right, but on the outside it looks great. But internally, is that a win, or what's actually happening? Just talking to identity, inner alignment, and what a win is actually.
Well, I mean, it's back to your understanding what freedom is. Let's just draw from your own wisdom.
Right.
There's something about folks, and the other piece is identity. For the folks that build businesses at the beginning and they build them up, and that identity piece gets too tied to the business,
right?
That can be a real pitfall. But again, they don't have someone around. If they don't have anyone around them to sort of steer them off of a bad course, there's that part. So I would say the identity piece that's in there. There's an ego piece if you're not seeking out any help, and there's unhappy millionaires. And I met a guy one time. He's like, he was going to retire, and he went over to visit his buddy's house, and he's like, hey. His buddy's like, come on in. His buddy's a millionaire, sold his business. Everything's great. It's Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. and the buddy's in a robe and he says, oh, I'm watching The Green Mile. And it's a great movie. And his friend says, why are you doing that? I think, haven't you watched it 10 times? And he's like, no, but it's a great movie. And so imagine that's what you did with your millions. And so this guy saw that and went, oh boy, I don't want that to happen. And then back to that proactive type of self-awareness, that was sort of a trigger point for him to guide his own retirement resources in a different way. So really interesting about, again, who do you listen to? What are you doing with your time? And that piece around identity with the business, that can be some of the things that get in the way of are you the right leader for the moment? And I do a lot of, what do people say? People call me assertively kind. And so that ability to say the thing that needs to be said, and I keep over what is it, 12? Over 13 years, I can't believe I haven't been kicked out of the room yet. And all those things I wanted to say in corporate meetings, those corporate nightmare meetings where I wasn't in a position to say anything, I just say it now. But I'm amazed that when you say a truthful thing that's ethically sound, people immediately, their body language changes because you said it. So I was in a meeting recently where I'm like, boy, you run the place, but you're not the right leader for this time. I did say that to a guy. And he's like absorbing that. And then the people around him got to see me say that. They knew it. They'd been talking about it. But suddenly you've got someone in this situation. So now we're going to break through that. We're going to bust that barrier down and get him out of having to, because he doesn't want it. He built it up around him. The business scaled. It did all those things, but he didn't want it. So for me, facilitatively, the gift is to be in those situations, helping those leaders, again, either bolt on what they need, and I've been the guy in the room saying, hey, you just can't swear at people anymore. And the guy's like, and I'm like, yeah, so you literally can't, because he was more stressed out about it, but he had no one had ever said that. I can't tell you how often I talk to people. I'm like, have you been to the gym? Like, how's your health? No one's said anything to them. They're just on that journey, that treadmill. So when you're saying about they're on the way up, do they have those right leadership check-ins along the way? And if they've created some level of wealth and then dependency of employees, I think it's their sort of ethical, moral obligation to take care of themselves, get the self-awareness they need to build a great business. And if they can do that, then everybody's going to benefit. And if they stay in that self-indulgent, ego-driven 12-year-old self thing, get a therapist, like do some yoga, something.
Got it. Yeah, got it. I mean, some people listening could be in all walks of life. They could be wanting to start a business. They want to go find the next company. So they will see a lot of value in terms of like want to be a leader. So I've been in corporate jobs and many times, and we'll hang out having a beer and after work or things like that, or some work parties or whatever, right? And many of these parties, I found it to be extremely boring for one reason, actually, because like people couldn't get out of their head. Because many of these things in terms of like, okay, fine, I'm a VP here, I'm a general manager here, I'm a director of this XYZ. But anyway, within the office, all are competing against each other. That's the culture, right? I mean, you got to compete and then, the strongest wins and kind of thing. There's no appraisal, annual review, all of that happens. And so when you go to some of these events and meetings, there is no real connection. There's no real conversation. Yeah, have a great day. Have a great Merry Christmas, right? All of these means nothing. So I right around 2020 or something, I promised myself I'm not having the shallow conversation with anyone, right? So because it doesn't mean anything. Okay, how are you doing, right? Do you mean it? So mean what you say and say what you mean, right? So I want to be on board in that team. So anyone in the corporate career, anything like that. So how do they actually build relationship when they are in that kind of an environment? that is like highly competitive. Nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, they are promoted to be full of themselves. Oh, I am the vice president of X, Y, and Z. Actually, once they walk out of the gate, that doesn't mean anything, actually. I'm a strong believer of like titles doesn't mean anything, actually. Sorry for some of my very bad remarks of when it comes to the corporate, because I've spent a little too much time there. And I think a lot of these doesn't make any sense.
Having a title, in one of my workshops, I say having a title doesn't mean you know how to run a meeting.
Exactly.
Right, in terms of what that is, or having this title thing. And it's funny because that's what you're conditioned to do. And that's what I'm going to say, whatever. It drives the economy, that approach to things, that corporate approach. And it has to do everything with the size and scale. And when you're in the millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, I don't know if that momentum is easy. It's hard to overcome, to keep an agile kind of, once you get up over like 100 employees or whatever, it's really tough to avoid what you're talking about. And then the incentives that are built in, and what does that look like? It really comes back to the leaders, right? Like, what kind of business do you want to run? Like, if you're Bezos, you don't want people to go to the bathroom. Then that's the kind of place that you run, in terms of how you're doing things. And they make, in the end, they employ a lot of people. They make a lot of money. I'm not trying to super judge it. I'm just saying that's the type of conditions you can set up, or you can set up a small giant. I've had some guys on their episodes coming up from a little company called Pemco, 30 people. They do interior renovation work. They've been doing it for 35 years. They've been able to run it at a similar size through multiple economy scenarios. And they've just got a way to do it and a client base, and they want a values-driven place that they love to go into work. In fact, a couple brothers, Kevin and Jeff, they're just good guys, and they inherited it from their dad who built up the company. So can you build a small giant and have that be a place where you want to work and maintain it within the economic conditions? Do you need to be part of a bigger machine of those things that can sort of, like you said, suck the soul out of you? Yeah, I don't know that I have necessarily a good answer, but I'm so glad to hear that your authenticity broke through, and that you found, again, back to your freedom that you talked about earlier as your win. You can see where that influence was to go off on your path that you're on now.
Yeah. Shout out to Colin Harms. I think something I visited his facility, something great he does in terms of like building his businesses. Like, he told me, he shared his story about, he gives a cooler full of like beef, an entire cooler full of beef, like I think every 6 weeks, once to his employees, staff, like, just, go be well. Like, that's probably the biggest ticket on the grocery bill. Right. So he gives that away for free so that like the employees are taken care of. I mean, those are some small things that leaders could do, actually. So something that he shared, I'm proud to share that again. So.
Yeah. And you can see that he's a strong leader, and he's able to do that. And it creates the loyalty that he needs in his business to have that long-running employees and avoid the turnover and do those things and make it a great place to work. I'm a big fan. There's Dan Price, legendary story out of Silicon Valley, at one point raised the minimum salary to $70,000 US a year, which means that the admin who wasn't making anywhere near that suddenly was making $70K. Do you know, this kind of stuff? And it was just literally from his profits. He said, I'm making a lot of money, so I'll just share some of these profits. Well, they got more profitable as a company with the loyalty that was gained. And then people started to buy houses, move closer to work, have kids, have a life. But it's very leader driven. And we see it. We can pick our political leaders that we love. We can pick the ones that we don't agree with in this conversation. What type of leader do you want to be? Do you have that self-awareness there? And how do you want it to go? And so nice to hear that and it's funny, I spent a lot of time suffering in the corporate settings, and it's a great gift to guard my ability to have an independent voice over these years that has brought a lot of help to people as being the outsider. And again, I just keep not getting kicked out of meetings because I say what needs to be said in those situations to help people move.
Yeah. No, I think what I'm passionate about people is like, I don't like anyone suffering. Suffering could be like of their own making, but sometimes they are forced to be in a certain situation, which is not the environment, that's something that they don't control. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't want anyone to suffer. I just want people to be well. That's it. It's not a big ask for anyone. So that's where I'm coming from. Let's segue into a different section, Gordon. It's called an AI section. Since we are a tech company, we want to do something cool with AI. And I wanted to draw something with you.
Okay.
And you're going to prompt the AI to draw something, and we'll have a question around it. How about that? Get this thing started. Let me know if you see my screen in a moment. Do you see my screen? Okay. Perfect. So we're going to ask Grok to draw us something. Whatever. It could be any request.
You want me to draw something for the purpose of what?
For the purpose of whatever's in your mind. Gordon is making a request to AI to draw something. So whatever comes out from the drawing, we will have a conversation around.
Okay.
We'll have a question
so
on
do
it.
I just speak?
No, you can just tell me. I'm going to type it.
I'm going to tell you. Okay.
Okay.
Gore, you could say the CEO of Executive Wins.
Draw me CEO of...
No, not draw. No. That's not it. I'm saying the prompt is going to start with and saying, the CEO of Executive Wins wants a new logo for his business.
Got it. Executive Wins wants a new logo for his business.
And his current logo has an EW in it. And now he only wants it to be a W that represents the values, vision, and mission of his company.
Sorry, I missed the last part. His current logo has an EW
has an EW in it. And now he wants a logo that only has the letter W in it. And again, whatever you want to do, that reflects his... And you can copy and paste my website in there or whatever, and maybe it can go to town and you can save me some money with a designer.
Only you in it. Okay, fine. I'm going to pick it up from your... Is it executivewins.com?
Executivewins.com. Yeah, and if you paste in that website, then maybe Grok can really get at it. This is good. I didn't know I was going to get some work done today. This is perfect.
Oops. I just downloaded it. There we go. That's your logo from your website.
Sure.
Is this the one?
No, it's a different one. But if you actually put the link to the website in, I think Grok would have fun with that.
Okay. All right. Take a peek at the site once. Executivewins.com. Let's see what it comes up with. We do two drawings, and just it's a different way of having a conversation. Okay, let's see.
And do you like Grok as opposed to ChatGPT, or you use them all? Or
I use it all. I use Gemini. I use Grok. I use Claude. ChatGPT,
Great.
of course.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to tell, make an edit, draw, new image, logo. Okay, yeah. I have to use the word draw.
There we go.
There we go. So that's something for you. I'm going to email it to you. Don't worry about it.
Perfect.
So that's great. So we got something done. Yeah, Executive Wins. What does the brand Executive Wins mean to you, Gordon?
What's happened for me now is the W is symbolic, and I'm using it. There's a slide. Remember I said strategy, work plan, people, operations, and results? On the W, top of the W on the left, strategy. On the bottom of the W on the left, work plan. Middle, people. Operations, results. The arrow momentum part is something that will go into the logo design. And it really is trying to get that to be a symbol. Because one of my interests now with that is, well, I'll just ask you, what does a win in your business look like?
Is conversion is an initial win, but I think sustenance and renewal of contracts, those are...
I'll make it quite literal. What does it look like? Is it something on a screen? Is it a proposal? Is it looking at your office? Is it an award? What does it actually look like?
The win? What does it actually look like? I've never thought about it that way. I don't know. We create software products.
Okay, so then a software, is it when you see the software on the screen?
Yeah, that's what we deliver. So we create
the end. That's the end.
That's a
product.
Goal, yeah.
So when you look at a good user interface, is that what a win looks like?
Yeah, a great product, and if you can put a smile on the customer's face, hey, yeah, I love it.
So there's two. You just said two. A smile on the customer's face, that looks like that.
Yeah.
And then the product on the screen.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Play along. What does a win sound like in your business?
I think it's a satisfaction that we solve someone's problem.
I'm bugging you. I'm trying different parts of your brain. Literally, does the customer laugh? Do they shake your hand and you hear the hand slap? What's the actual sound?
Actual sound? I don't know. I'm unable to comprehend when you say actual sound.
What I mean to say is the sound is the customer saying thank you.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's the actual sound, right? So the customer smiled, and that was a win because they used the software. It looked like their employee getting the result of the software, which was, I don't know, doing something more efficiently or something like that. But if we had to take photos, so the reason I'm saying why is it a W is I have this campaign that I run now with companies, and I'll say spot the W. And you just, thanks for going through this with me. Because what it does is you're like, yeah, well, no, I know what it is. And you say, no, what does it actually look like? It's when Janet rings the cowbell when something good happens. Let's get a picture of Janet ringing the cowbell. So what you can see, it's funny, it's sensory, right? What does it look like? What does it feel? What does it sound like? And then I would just say, how does it feel? And that's starting to get into that why executive wins. What's the logo? What is that doing? And it's funny, I have a little W. You might not be able to see it over my shoulder. I'm starting to now go in and think, well, where can we place those in an office setting? Or what does that look like? And that really starts to make people think about it. And when they come up with what it looks like, it's really interesting because they're like, oh, and then they start to think about things in a different way. So I'm super excited about that kind of approach.
Got it. All right. Yeah. So we're going to draw one more image.
All right.
In the AA section, and we'll go from there. So this time it's going to be something that's not executive wins. That's not your podcast.
Perfect.
It got to be something totally different. It could be about your travel, anything actually, or the kind of topics you're.
Draw the tree of leadership.
Draw the tree of leadership. Okay, let's see what it comes up with. I'm excited to see the tree of leadership. Wow, look at that.
It's got a Gandalf kind of vibe. There you go.
Yeah, I read this book called from Robin Sharma. I could be wrong with the title. What is the name? Who lead without a title? Leaders without a title, I think. I believe that's the book name. Why are leaders so complicated? There's so many, they're multifaceted, right? There are multiple things that's going on. It's not just the nature of the role, but overall, everyone is a leader in a way. I call everyone as a Pathfinder. If you haven't watched a Pathfinder video, are you a Pathfinder? I think everyone is a Pathfinder. They're trying to carve their own paths. Similarly, everyone is also a leader of sorts, right? So my question to you is like, why is it so nuanced when it comes to leadership?
Yeah. People, you have to lead yourself to a certain degree. If you look at yourself sort of as a unit or an organism, the tree image is a good one with the roots and what it takes. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have a sort of fancy answer for that one other than to say, I think it makes me think that a lot of people aren't necessarily choosing to be leaders. You know what I mean? It's rare that there's not many intentional leaders. People, like you said, in the corporate settings, people rise up. I remember going from employee to manager, and I mismanaged that ego-wise. I was just full of myself and had to learn hard lessons around what that meant. So I wasn't ready for leadership at that point, and then kind of grew into it painfully in the first 3 months and then got a little bit better at it. And then I've given a lot of thought to, what that is. I think a lot of people don't necessarily choose leadership. I think they kind of are leading in a sense, or, by title or whatever that is. And so the ones that do choose leadership, when we talk about the complexity that you're talking about, they're the ones that are bolting all the pieces together. So I just interviewed a fellow this morning. He runs a very successful company, and he talked about being an employee and then going through and seeking out the knowledge, like the 5 dysfunctions of a team with Patrick Lencioni, building from not just dollars and technical, but actually then learning, there's people involved and trust. From his engineering background, he talked about that. He talked about mentorship in an elegant way. So again, we're talking very much about building the leader in a sense with all those pieces that need to be put together along the way. But I think there's something that strikes me about the complexity of leadership where I don't know that there's many like fully developed leaders that sort of got at it, put in the years, did the time, did the reps to become those fully outstanding leaders. And so I would just say, are they there by choice or they're not by choice? And if they're there by choice, are they intentional in putting together all the pieces they need to do?
That was my next question, actually. There are leaders who are there by choice. They want to get to that CEO position or the chairman, whatever the position. And there are others who are not by choice, not intentional at all. I never wanted to be the CEO. I never wanted to be the CIO, whatever, right? And I hear great stories every single time when they say that, right? Especially when they're not intentional about being that leader, right? And the kind of struggles that they actually go through, and many times it also ended up to be a success story, right? And we talk about, no, he's not fit to be a leader, right? Today's modern social media era, no, he's not, he's unfit to be a leader. And on the other hand, like, I never wanted to be a leader. I became the CEO, and look what happened. The company went from $10 million to $100 million, right? I've heard that story in our own podcast. So how do you see that? Like, so what is a leader in a way?
Right. the unanswerable question, because you just said it. There's the oxymoron, and there's some people that are natural, some people are intentional, some people shouldn't be leading who have leadership roles. It's so funny having dealt with a lot of volunteer nonprofit boards where the ego is high and the competency is not great, where they sort of mislead situations. So yeah, pretty unanswerable in terms of, how to get, what is that secret sauce, other than to say the intentionality, or is there a sliver of humility? Like when I coach, for example, if there's no humility in the situation, then there's not going to be any learning or self-development. And a lot of harm gets done the longer that person without humility is, pushing things forward.
Got it. One thing from our initial first 20 minutes, I had that word humility in my head. Thanks for bringing it up. I think that goes a long way. Yeah, without humility, I don't think there's any other way that's happening.
Not a chance.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen a lot of leaders and you work with a lot of leaders. Is there any other pattern recognition that you see across successful leaders? Gordon, just a learning moment for me.
I wish there was.
Humility,
it's funny. We typically were supposed to talk about the mavericks, do you know what I mean, that are out there, and General Patton or Winston Churchill or Bill Gates or this kind of thing. I don't know that there's a type, because there are many quiet leaders that are simply very influential. For example, they're not extroverted, they're doing their thing, and they lead by example. But I think there's just I don't know that there's sort of one way to put it. And there's not a formula for what that looks like. It really is, is that right person doing that right style that meets the time for what they're kind of doing. I remember years ago, there's a friend of mine had a great story about
maybe a red tie or a blue tie or
yeah. Well, there's a guy who worked in a municipality, and he there's a union setting, and all the guys would drag their feet and wouldn't do their work. But he said there was one guy who just went and put a hard day's work in every day. And they didn't like this guy because he would work out of rhythm for all of what they were trying to do, which is to slow things down and whatever. And so again, he was leading by simply doing his work. And I think we see all in organizations many different kinds of leaders. So I don't know that there's one prescription.
Should successful leaders, should they work or should they outwork others?
Whatever. Outwork, work efficiently, work smartly. Do you know what I mean? It's so fun that you're going for my thoughts on the silver bullet. I don't know that there's one way to do it. Yes, some have outworked them and then they burn out, and some have worked smartly, and there's all kinds of things. And then the environmental factors, the external factors that they can't control. COVID's come up in this conversation. Like, what does COVID do to your world, even if you're the perfect leader in a given situation? So all kinds of different things to talk about.
Got it. No. Just to get your perspective. We have almost come to the end of the conversation, Gordon. I think it was a very good one. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So the next section is a rapid fire question. Rapid fire questions is like short phrase or one word.
Okay.
And we'll wrap and we're good to go. So how about that?
Sounds good.
So the rapid fire question, what's one habit, just to get to know you a little bit. So what's one habit that changed your life?
Giving up perfectionism.
Awesome. What motivates you more, purpose or results?
Purpose.
What's one skill every leader should try to master?
Humility.
Amazing. I love that. What's one book that influenced you probably the most?
There's 50. I'm so sorry.
Okay, give a couple of them or three.
I don't have the title off the tip of my tongue.
Or the author.
Brene Brown.
She's wonderful.
Not Braving the Wilderness. Daring Greatly is the one that I would come to mind. And I'm so sorry. I'm going to say Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People from that old literature, and Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Very important book around his experience. Do you know the story of Viktor Frankl?
No, I haven't.
Viktor Frankl was taken prisoner in the Nazi concentration camps in World War II. He was a psychologist when he went in there. When he went in there with his wife by his side, and then they were separating the women and the men, she was killed within a day.
Wow.
He took his own wedding band off his finger and threw it in the dirt because he knew they would cut his finger off to get it. He lived under conditions where 1 in 28 people made it out alive in the concentration camp. People around him being beaten, starved, tortured, murdered. He made a wonderful discovery that led to a lifelong body of work that's leading to me tell a very sort of almost, not even close to the magnitude of the story. He said that he learned that in between stimulus and response, in between people around him being beaten, starved, tortured, murdered, and his response to that, as a prisoner in a concentration camp, there's a gap. And in that gap is the power to choose your response. And if you can choose your response, you can choose your freedom. And he went on to create the Frankl Institute as a Man's Search for Meaning. Like if I had to pick even the three that I mentioned, Man's Search for Meaning. Read that book. It'll talk about the ability to choose in a way that's just so profound.
Got it. Noted. Point noted. I've make a note. What's your definition of a true win? Your definition of a true win?
The high quality of conversations that I've had in the last year.
Love it. Yeah, I could attest to those as well. Very, they stayed with me all the time. There's so many leadership lessons, amazing ones. One person told me, I've never met an organ donor in real life. I've seen that in a driver's license. There was one person, he's a founder. He's a founder of a $50 million company. His founder grew up in Spain. Then now he's running a company in Hong Kong, right? So he donated his own kidney to his mother. He donated to one person, the other person donated to his mother. Because I've never heard that story. I've never met a person and had a conversation with a real organ donor. Yeah. Those are conversations that will stay with me forever. So thankful for those conversations. I attest to that. What's one belief that guides your decisions, Gordon? What's one belief that guides your decision making? Probably confidence or probably empathy or could be different things.
Interesting.
You're making decisions day after day and you're making big decisions, small decisions.
Yeah.
And some are
What's sort of one thing that guides it? And so a guiding principle for me, it's empowering others. That is is what I just did it make that conversation better? Did it make them a little bit better? Did it move them forward? Did I use my ability to create an aha moment, a life-changing moment, either in 10 minutes or 10 hours or whatever that was? That's certainly a guiding principle because I have that skill set to help people think differently and take action that makes a big impact.
Love it. I probably know the answer for this question, but I'll ask you anyway. What's harder, starting or sustaining success?
Sustaining, I think, is harder.
Yeah.
I think starting is not hard, actually, funny enough. And I've had a lot of failed starts, many. And sustaining, I think, is, for sure.
Got it. This probably the last but one question. If there's one thing that you want to still aspiring to grow as a leader, what's that one quality you're still aspiring to grow? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to tell me, but if there's one quality.
What would I love to aspire to grow myself? Mastering the skill of good enough and moving so that I can get a higher volume of ideas and concepts into testing to get into a better quality validating process. So way less on the front end on the thinking and the what if and the planning, and getting it into taking action and getting those things out in the world to get some yeses and nos and then just move from there.
What is your closing word? If anyone wants to take anything from this conversation, what should it be? Your closing word.
In your own heart and mind, if you can think about the bracelet that we talked about earlier on, remember the wins. Take the time. Here's one I'll ask you. Do you have a wins list?
I haven't made one yet, no.
Right. That's a gift I hope that I give to every audience, every person I meet. Because the simplest thing is if we sat for 10 minutes, you'd fill up a sheet of all the cool things you've done. And what a gift to yourself. And I always say, just don't judge it. Just go. Write as much as you can for 5-10 minutes straight and see how many wins are on that page. And on that day when we're talking about when you're knocked out and you can't sort of pick yourself up, that's another gift to yourself to have and go, oh, right, I've done all these things. And then when you have that wins list, it's not just to write it for yourself. Tell the world what's on that list so that they can then know your superpower. You know what I mean? And they can know that you are someone who's invested in relationships and in getting to know people. So they can know someone that you're like a technical genius who can solve their problem and get their company to move forward in a way that tell them. But the first part is to write them all down and then have them there and then practice saying them out loud and then make sure that people know what you're good at through that type of practice.
Awesome. Gordon, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much. We went through different trajectories, what it means to be a leader, the anatomy of a win, executive wins, your journey of life from the media career to broadcasting to where you're now talking to leaders all the time. I really enjoyed it, actually. Yeah, very fascinating. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for what you do in terms of bringing your message out to the world, and how lucky to meet someone who's so authentically at that right time in their life that you get to come across in that way and really get these good messages out. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gordon. you.